Policy and strategy for the African Transformation Movement, Mzwanele Manyi, is joining us now. They join forces with the economic freedom fighters at their march to Eskom's Megawatt Park, demanding the end of load shedding. Let's talk a bit about that. Your Twitter handle describes it, not yours, the party's Twitter handle, as an unapologetic display of political tolerance. To what end?
Yeah, no, look, I think South Africa is in trouble. And the sooner we realize this, the better. And the sooner we stop sympathizing with certain individuals and saying what is in the best interest of South Africa. There's no way to do that, the better. We are arguing that, firstly, we must congratulate the EFF for this major initiative which they've done. And it just so happened that it resonates with the values of the ATM. So for us as the ATM, we're very nervous, very, very worried about what's happening at Eskom. And we don't think that the government is actually on par with what the people of South Africa want. What government is doing right now is actually undermining the business case of Eskom. You have a government here that says all the lucrative customers, basically, must get away from Eskom. It says that municipalities in good standing must go and procure their generation from IPPs. It says mining companies must self-generate. And all of that. So all of that means all the lucrative customers are going to be pulled away from Eskom. So what's going to happen? We're going to end up with an Eskom that is currently struggling to service the more than 400 billion rand bill. Now, if you take away the lucrative customers, you're going to have a weakened Eskom. And so before you know, we're going to have another bailout or liquidation. So this is
so the argument to that, and I hear that, I mean, immediately when you're talking municipalities, about 13% of the revenue at Eskom. You take the mines and all those companies, that's about 40%. And you're only left with the low electricity users, which, I mean, it doesn't take rocket science for you to look at that and say that is not a business.
So why do we have a government that is actually determined, resolute?
So their argument then is that they want to then split this up so that then you only focus that portion of generation, but Eskom still owns the network, and therefore transmission would still and distribution would still belong to them.
Yeah, it does, but you see the issue is what is it that you transmit are things that you need to procure from somebody else. So Eskom, with the various plants, coal plants that it has, is busy mothballing those plants. It's come up with all kinds of reasons why not to use those coal plants, and instead prefers these IPPs. This transmission network is really going to be utilized by the IPPs. And if you look at the cost at which these IPPs are charging Eskom vis-a-vis these coal plants, it's chalk and cheese. These guys are just killing Eskom with their pricing. And not only that, even on the coal sides, the 40-year contracts that they've had with these big white monopoly capital companies, those companies are charging Eskom more than what NERSA has asked. I mean, I think NERSA's numbers are somewhere between 300 and 400 per ton. These guys are charging in the excess of 1,000 rand a ton. So we've got these big white monopoly capital companies on the coal side milking Eskom. We've got IPPs on the other side milking Eskom. So Eskom is actually being pushed to death.
The Treasury is convinced, though, that IPPs, renewable pricing, has dramatically dropped. And hence, they are calling the completion of stage 4 and quickly moving into the next phase, which is phase 5.
If that is the case, why is it then that with the drop in IPP prices, why have we not taken those savings to ensure that we continue then to not cut the generation from some of these other plants? Because then we can afford everything now that there's a drop in price from the IPPs. So what is it that is happening with Eskom that they're not able to use all these resources so that we don't have load shedding? We hold a view that load shedding is still avoidable. So we do not accept this rolling load shedding that Eskom is doing.
Yeah, baseload capacity, I think it's 46, or it's supposed to be that, 46 megawatt. We are not anywhere near that. In fact, what we need to run is around 23, and we are even below that. So there's no capacity to run. What is your suggestion should happen at this particular point? Because there is that 11,000 or so that is in shortfall at the moment.
Yeah, no, look, the total network can deliver that 46,000 megawatts. But with all what is happening, with just proper management and ensuring that all the coal plants that must be unleashed, including these IPPs, we've got basically we've got sort of enough to be able to get things going. But the issue here is that because there's a strategy to ensure that the IPPs are on pound seats, they keep closing all these coal plants. They keep closing them just so that we can focus on these IPPs.
And this IPPs, so are you saying they're deliberately shutting them down?
Well,
when they can still be operated?
They can still be operated, of course. Those are all operational plants that are busy shutting down. And if they are serious about providing electricity to the country, they should not be rushing themselves to be closing these things down. All they're up to right now, all they really want to do is to create such a lot of anxiety within the public so that we become very anxious and accept everything. And they seem to be doing that right because people are just fed up now. They're just saying, whatever it takes to get the lights on, do that. It's exactly where they want us to be. And now we're in a case where Eskom is being undermined to death.
So there is a conversation which you know around the fact that we were supposed to have maintained these power stations in 2010, and they were not maintained. And the reason why they keep breaking down is because basically we are using everything, glue, sellotape, and elastoplast, and everything else to just keep these things running. So people who say Mzwanele Manyi and ATM, they want to plunge this country into darkness by insisting that we keep using these power stations that are clearly broken. And we currently don't even have the money to fix it. Never mind that Eskom was given another 112 billion rands in the budget in the next 3 years, which we actually just don't have the money to fix.
Yeah, no, look, do you know how many billions we spent on Medupi and Kusile to solve exactly that problem?
Yeah, well,
these are new plans.
That's part of the debt that we are dealing with at Eskom of 150 billion.
Yeah, these are the new plans that should have been commissioned and commissioned and commissioned. But for some reason, even that doesn't seem to be happening. So you find the issue is as well that it looks like Eskom has hollowed itself out of the core skills that are there and all of this. Is why, in fact, for us as ATM, even the CEO that is there, we thought that they would bring in an engineer because that Eskom is an engineering arrangement. Now, if you have an engineering arrangement and you get a lawyer to come and run it, what do you think you're doing? This is why you needed an engineer to run this thing, so that you can integrate all these generation capabilities, whether it's coal, whether it's IPP, and all of that. You need an engineering mind to be able to work these things. But with a lawyer in charge, what can you expect?
Do you agree then in principle with all the demands that were put out in the memorandum today?
By the EFF?
By the EFF.
I think they did a great job. I must really congratulate them once more. They picked up all the sports that should be looked at. Yes, I agree with all those demands. The demands of EFF are exact same demands of ATM. In fact, I think that demand list by the EFF is a demand list for the country, because what the EFF is trying to do, which we agree with as ATM, is that let's ensure that after all is said and done, the poorest of the poor are saved. With the current trajectory where this government is headed, we're heading for a disaster. We're heading for a situation where the weakened Eskom is going to end up being sold to these white monopoly capital players who are not going to have any mercy. These guys are not going to have an indigent policy. They're just going to say, you pay or we switch off and all of that. Whether you are poor or whatever, they don't care about that. They're business people, hard-nosed business people. Yeah. This is where Pravin and Ramaphosa are heading us to. This is why it's a problem. So we also agree with the fact that both these guys, in fact, should go. for us as the ATM, we've already put a vote of no confidence in Ramaphosa. We're very serious about that. Same thing with Jamnadas. He, ever since he's been running these SOEs, they've been going south. If there was proper consequence management, he should have long gone. He has failed as a Minister of Public Enterprise to bring stability not only in Eskom, even in SAA, everywhere. Whatever he touches seems to get messed up. So why is it that we're tolerating such mediocrity?
Talk to me then about the rationale and your thinking around one of the items on the list, more than one minister in shareholding calling for the restructuring of the shareholding of Eskom.
Yeah, look, what do you want to know about that? We as ATM, we're of the view that the biggest problem in the South African discourse is this thing of people just worrying about monopoly capital instead of white monopoly capital. Because, you see, once you say monopoly capital, you are going to implicate the state. We, as ATM, are very happy with the monopoly of Eskom by government. We are very happy that there should be no shareholding by private sector into Eskom. This is an asset of the nation, must be owned by the nation, it must work for the nation, it must ensure that the poor are subsidized. Now, once you start to introduce private sector, their interest is one and one only, and that is profit. Whereas in South Africa, we're still a developmental state, we're still building our infrastructure, we need to take a long-term view. But if you go to the corporates, they work from quarter to quarter, and they're looking for a double-digit growth and all of that. So you cannot do that if you're a development state. So for us, we're saying the introduction of these shareholders in Eskom is a disaster to the developmental agenda, is a disaster for the poor, and we're saying to this government that do not do this.
But what they're calling for more than one minister as a shareholder. I mean, is this a way of somehow trying to bring in the energy minister, because it is the view of, I suppose, the EFF, I don't know whether you share the same view, that actually Eskom should have been falling under the Ministry of Energy and not under public enterprises?
Yeah, that's right. That makes sense. It's an energy outfit. It should really do that. Not only Eskom, by the way. Our view as ATM is that, in fact, this department called public enterprise must be done away with completely. All these SOEs, Schedule 2 SOEs, which are the profitable, which are the profit and loss ones, the Schedule 2 SOEs, like Rand Waters and all of these SABCs, should just fall within the ministries which they belong to. SABC must be communication and so on into those ministries. You really don't need public enterprise. And also, very importantly, we need to see what exactly is the problem. Why is it that we have political interference? We argue as ATM that the problem is actually the law. PFMA is the biggest disaster. That law actually legislates the interference by ministers. So when Pravin keeps going into these things, he's, strictly speaking, interfering, but he's empowered by the law to do this. So as long as we have PFMA in place, we're going to have a problem. Lastly, the reason Telkom is succeeding is because Telkom has been exempted from PFMA, has been exempted from triple PFA. The sooner we do that for all the SOEs...
That's a conversation for another day. I'm going to bring you back to talk to us about that a little bit.
Sure.
Mzwanele Manyi, I appreciate the time. Thanks for coming through. Head of